Matt, I want to show this to you. You're a parent, right? Okay? It's perfectly normal for 10 years and up. Here's just one page I want you to see here.
For 10 and up, huh?
It's unspeakable what these people have done to our children.
When did that start? When was it decided that we need to start teaching kids about this stuff at such a young age?
So I'll answer that with one word: Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say
he believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
What came out is that his research was fraudulent.
Kinsey based his fraudulent conclusions on data he collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. His research was conducted in prisons, not everyday America. He also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1. His most influential book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young kids, including babies as young as 5 months old. But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood. His ideas form the foundation for sexual education in public schools today. How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Okay, well now we have another very important character, and his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth, and ultimately environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
Money was telling the world about his theory that a boy could be raised as a girl and do just fine, and vice versa.
And so Money tried out his theory on 2 young twin boys, the Reimer twins.
When the twins were 8 months old and they went to be circumcised, the first twin, whose name was Bruce, something went wrong with the machinery and his penis was burnt off. They stopped and didn't do a second circumcision on the other twin, as you might imagine. And the parents, of course, didn't know what to do. How are they going to raise this child?
John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl. Money also conducted sexually abusive experiments on the twins throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other.
He reported up to the age of 10 that this was a complete success. Well, wasn't true.
The results were a disaster. Bruce could never fully accept his female identity. Eventually, his parents told him the truth, and he chose to transition back to a boy, taking the name David. As an adult, David spoke out about the abuse and the damage done to him by John Money.
The girls would do their things with their Barbies and things like that, and that wouldn't interest me.
Mm-hmm.
And things such as trucks and building forts and, getting to the odd fist fight and climbing trees. That's the kind of stuff that I like, but it was unacceptable, so I'd never...
As a girl?
As a girl, I had no place to fit in.
The trauma that he and his brother and his entire family went through left deep scars. His brother died of an overdose when he was 38, and then David committed suicide.
There was never a retraction or an apology from John Money. Instead, his ideas were adopted by mainstream psychology, and they form the basis of gender ideology today. Why don't more people know about John Money and Alfred Kinsey?
Evidently, there are forces that don't want this information out.
So the Americans are more interested in a transgender, homosexual agenda around the world. They will invest their money and give you money to protect human rights. Russia and China are coming with weapons and militarization strategies so that we can protect ourselves. So I want to say this very loud and clear to the Americans. Continue on your transgender agenda. Stay there. Leave us to do politics on the other side. Because what we need right now is not a minority human rights activation. What we need is a societal transformation. And for you as Americans to think that we really envy that when you have an anti-lesbian, anti-gay, LGBT principle, then tourists would drop. Let me correct that once and for all, Sbu, and cut and clip this, and it must be loud and clear. Are you saying to me that all the tourists are gay? And when you hear that this is a non-gay zone, tourism will suffer? Question number one. Question number two, are you saying that we don't have a right to expressing ourselves as Africans? Question number three, if democracy means majority rules and majority votes against a principle, then why won't you allow that to become law? Are you saying the minority must manage the majority, or the majority must manage the minority? Then if that whole ideology is wrong, then take democracy in a nice black dustbin bag and throw it outside. Because what you are telling us is by the people, for the people, with the people, and all those slogans you hear, what democracy represents. If we are 10 in the room and 9 people say no, and one person says yes, democracy says you go with the majority. So if we say we want to make Africa democratic, and the demographics of our democracy says no, then why do you philosophically want to manipulate the will of the majority to favor the will of the minority? Then this is where it really gets confusing to me.
So-called all-ages drag shows are popping up all over the country. Drag shows for kids. One of them was held the other day in Austin, Texas.
How old are you? 9. You're 9? Oh my God! Oh, look at that! Thank you. Whoever's mom is out here. Hello, you're reaching for my Are you hungry? Mommy.
Yeah, in case you were wondering if they were targeting kids. They're literally targeting kids. Here's more footage from the same event.
I've been working so hard. I've actually worked my butthole right off. Look at that. Look at that. It's gone.
So GLAAD is for this? Human Rights Campaign is for this? Oh, they're for it. It's happening all over the country. It's part of a national tour called the Drag Queen Christmas. 36 shows in 18 different states. The reason you know what it's like inside and not just relying on the lies of NBC News and the Washington Post is because Taylor Hanson, an independent journalist, went there and got that footage with the help of the Texas Family Project. Twitter immediately suspended Hanson for telling the truth about what was going on. Amazingly, Taylor Hanson joins us tonight. Taylor, thanks so much for coming on. So I think your video basically answers my questions. This wasn't an adult thing. This was a kid thing. There were kids there. That was the point, right?
Yeah, you're completely right, Tucker. I mean, this was marketed towards children in the flyer itself. It literally says all ages. And I don't know about you, I mean, but the video that I watched, it does not entitle anything that includes, it's appropriate for all ages in this.
I mean, I'll let our audience come to their own conclusions about why someone would intentionally target children for this. And let me just say, if there were no kids there, we wouldn't be putting this on the air because it wouldn't be our business. But with kids there, it is, I think. Why would you be banned from telling the truth about what was going on inside, do you think?
Yeah, it's very interesting that, I was almost immediately suspended after reporting on this and having it hit breaking news. The reason why I would be banned is because you have fake reporters, like Will Carless from USA Today, amongst many other sources that want to come out and say, there are no children there. I mean, they flat out deny this, even though that these children are essentially on video being sexually groomed. I mean, there's no other way to put it, is these children are being groomed by adults.
So, and outlets like USA Today pretend that they lie and they say that's not happening when this video shows that it is. Why would they want to cover that up?
I really think it's all about the narrative game here. I've heard of something called drag phobia. That's been popping up pretty recently in my mentions. And I guess if, I don't really know what that means, but if drag phobia means that I am against, full-grown men dressed as women, sexually dancing and committing lewd acts in front of minors intentionally, then, you could consider me drag phobic, to say the least.
And what's very interesting is that Ari Dredden, and this is coming from Lives of TikTok, an LGBTQ activist and program director for Media Matters, accidentally admits that schools are giving kids porn. What do I mean by this? Well, Greg Price put this out, and basically we have Chelsea Clinton putting out a tweet saying over 50% of the attempted book bans last year involved books with LGBTQ plus characters and themes. Seth responded to this and said, Chelsea Clinton has come out in favor of porn for kids. Then he shows pictures of the books and he says, imagine how sick and depraved you have to be to call this a children's book. Ari responded and said, hey, Seth, I think you meant this for my DMs. You just sent me an unsolicited drawing of a blowjob. So basically, she just admitted that these are porn books then. So why does this have to be sent to her DM if this is okay for our children? So they're admitting that they are porn books.
These guys they're whole blocking the exits of the hospital. They've wrote fake paperwork to say I was sexually and physically abusing my 2-day-old daughter. I'm sitting on the ground, guys, and they won't let me leave. They want to take my daughter and do something sinister with her. The cops even said that the paperwork was written and signed by it was a fake paperwork. And they said that I'll be named a suspect if I try to leave with my daughter. That's fine, I'll be a suspect then. But why can't I leave? What's really going on? What's going on? Help me out, guys. Because it's all about this precious angel right here.
They are doing everything they can to collect as much revenue as possible right now. The numbers are up so high since Biden took office from Child Protective Services alone that I can't hardly stand it. Oh, it's got my blood boiling. I'm so pissed. What if I told you that the last numbers I saw was over 2,200 children a day? There's a lot of reports. I get state-by-state reports. I get state-by-state reports of how many children disappear out of the system. In Arizona alone, it averages between 60 and 70 children a month disappear out of their system.
And who's their system? You mean CPS?
CPS. What happens is Child Protective Services takes children. They put the parents through services. Hell is more like it. They contract for services for 18 to 24 months. Then while the parents are jumping through every hoop they can and spending their life fortune, and they can't work because they're in family court all the time and they're having to go see psychologists all the time and taking drug tests and all the other manner of things that they have you do. After 18 to 24 months, they terminate the parental rights. They put the children in foster. Then a guardian ad litem shows up a couple months later and moves them from one foster care to another, and then to another. And then the parents, and as soon as everybody they feel has lost track of these children, that had any relationship to these children, the guardian ad litem shows up and removes them. And then somehow their file gets deleted with the state, and they disappear out of the system. And then where do they go? Well, just recently, about 2 months ago, I found 5 children that were removed from one family that disappeared out of the system. And when we took a team in there and we rescued them, there's 4 traffickers that are in heaven right now. But we rescued, turn it down, is it too loud?
No. They're not in heaven. I said they're in hell.
Well, yeah, we know that. God's going to judge them and throw them where he wants. It's up to him. It ain't up to me. I'm just going to arrange the meeting if I can. I'm a facilitator. just arrange the meetings. But it was actually 5 children. We got 4 alive and 1 dead in the trunk of a car. And it was one of the most emotional weekends. If you've ever hugged a husband and wife who have been through that, it's pretty awful. On May the 4th, on the 44th birthday of the gal that was being groomed to be the head Queen Mother of the Illuminati here in the United States, who, by the way, has been helping us, and she's not in that anymore. She escaped from it. But the Illuminati likes to rub it in. So on her 44th birthday, at an address 4414 in Baltimore, Maryland, they sacrificed 44 children. Now the problem is this: we finally decoded everything and got the information at 9 p.m. Their meeting started at 10. By the time we assembled teams and got them there, it was 6 a.m. It was too late. Because between 10 and 3 a.m., they sacrificed 44 children in honor of her birthday. And you've never seen somebody cry so much in your whole life as her, and what they did in her name. Okay? And we got there in just enough time to collect the forensic evidence. And that sucks. Because had we known a few hours earlier, they held off to the last minute to communicate. Normally they communicate, we decipher their communications, we uncode their messages, and we can arrive in time. Because they're communicating amongst themselves, and we discover it. And we get there in time. But they held off communication. They knew what they were doing. They knew we'd figure out their language very quickly. And their language is not easy to uncode. In fact, I can show you a picture of it. It looks pretty bad. And that's the kind of thing that happens, and it drives me crazy.
It's been 4 years since billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. So why do we still know nothing about him? Well, we're finding out tonight some answers. The Wall Street Journal just got its hands on Jeffrey Epstein's private calendar. And it was a lot more suspicious than Brett Kavanaugh's. Epstein was meeting with the kind of people you'd think would steer clear of a convicted pedophile. Jeffrey Epstein was meeting with one of Barack Obama's top lawyers, Catherine Rumler. She met with Epstein dozens of times. Epstein even tried to set up Obama's lawyer to work for Bill Gates. How is Jeffrey Epstein a fixer between Obama's lawyer and Bill Gates? Epstein was also meeting with Joe Biden's CIA director. He wasn't CIA director at the time. He was Barack Obama's deputy secretary of state. William Burns was working for John Kerry at the State Department and meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, a known pedophile. And then Burns becomes CIA director. Today's director of the CIA went to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse where Epstein had sex with underage girls and, where he filmed other men having sex with underage girls. And William Burns went there and was then promoted to the director of the CIA. Now, I wonder if the future CIA director saw the portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress hanging in Epstein's parlor room. A few years later, Epstein was arrested and then hung himself in a jail cell while security cameras just happened to not be working, and the replacement guards just happened to fall asleep. And 2 years later, Biden just happens to pick William Burns to run the CIA. So what are we supposed to think? It's never been more clear. Epstein was an intelligence asset. Not only was he working for the CIA, Israeli intelligence, maybe even Russia intelligence. So was the American government allowing an asset to traffic and molest teenage girls all over the world for intelligence? Were we allowing Epstein to commit crimes against children for blackmail material? But we asked the CIA director, William Burns, why were you meeting with a convicted pedophile at his disgusting townhouse? And the CIA director said this: the director did not know anything about him, other than that he was introduced as an expert in the financial services sector and offered general advice on transition to the private sector. They had no relationship. So Obama's State Department official couldn't have asked anybody else in the entire country for help with a job in finance? He could have called any CEO, any hedge fund manager, any banking director. But he meets with Jeffrey Epstein, a guy that doesn't even really have a real business, a guy that doesn't even have a website, a guy that, as far as we know, only had one client, the CEO of Victoria's Secret. Huh. That doesn't add up, Bernsey.
So here we have this information coming out, and I do believe they're getting ahead of the story. I do believe a lot more information is about to drop, and people are going to learn about Epstein, and this is going to be a lot larger than people originally thought. I do believe we already know how large this is, but think about the majority of the country. They're going to start to learn who is involved with Epstein, and that reminds me of a couple of posts, and let's go back to post 3050. This is March 13, 2019, and down below it says the following: this is not just about sex trafficking. Will the rich and powerful influence the court to prevent the unsealing? The tale of two: sex resort, non-temple resort only, trafficked and drugged underage girls, occult worship of evil, class 1 through 99, Haiti, pray for the victims. Then we have post 3385. This is July 9th, 2019. Expect a lot more to become public unsealing. And I think we're already starting to see this, and I do believe this is going to pick up speed. Post 4565, July 2nd, 2020. Possible Epstein was a puppet, not the main person of interest. Financed by who or what foreign entity? Primary gather blackmail on elected politicians, dignitaries, royalty, Hollywood influencers, Wall Street, and other financial top-level players, other high-profile industry-specific people. Sometimes it's the people in the background that are of greater significance. And I do believe we're going to start to find out the people in the background. And remember, think about Hollywood, think about sports organizations, think about the corrupt politicians, think about royalty dignitaries and the rest. Once their names start to come out and they were involved with Epstein, they were on Epstein Island, when pictures start to come out, the game is over. And this is why these people have been fighting so hard, because they know if this gets out there, if Trump is able to expose all of this with the military and the people see it all, it is game over for them. Why do you think they've been trying so hard to get rid of him? Because they don't want their world to end. If their world ends and their world is exposed, they are finished. And I'm talking about all these people that are going against Trump. Because remember, at one time, they were all his friends before he got into politics, before he ran for president. Now, they know that he's seen their world, that he knows what it's all about. They know that he's going to bring it all down. And they're all on the same page fighting against him. And this is all going to come down around them. It's already in motion, and it's all going to come down. And what are they going to do? They're going to have to control the flow of information. And this is why I do believe the fake news is now preparing themselves. We can see countries now, they're preparing themselves. Because remember, this is not just the United States. It's worldwide. We have Brazil lawmakers. They are poised to vote on a contentious bill aimed at censoring alleged disinformation next week. So the legislation presented by a Communist Party member was pushed through at speed by the government led by Lula da Silva. Now, why do you think Biden had a CIA operative go down to Brazil, release Lula, and have him installed as president? Because they need to control the narrative everywhere. Keith Woods put this out on Twitter and said the following: Ireland is about to pass one of the most radical hate speech bills yet. Merely possessing hateful material on your devices is enough to face prison. Not only that, but the burden of proof is shifted to the accused, who is expected to prove they didn't intend to use the material to spread hate. This clause is so radical that even the people before profit opposed it as a flagrant violation of civil liberties. And really think about it. Who's going to define hate? What's their criteria? Are they going to say, well, I think that's hate, so yeah, you're guilty? Of course they're going to do that. You think disinformation, misinformation? You think they can deem that hate? Of course they can. You can see exactly what they're trying to do right now.